At this most significant moment in the lives of our graduates, we customarily ask a student to speak on behalf of his or her classmates. It is now my privilege to present to you this year's student speaker, JohnAnthony DiMaria, from the College of Professional Studies, class of 2017.
Good morning, Dr. Gempasol, Your Eminence Cardinal Turkson, trustees, faculty, parents, friends, and to my fellow graduates, the class of 2017, congratulations. We, the class of 2017, are this incredibly diverse congregation of students, which creates room for dialogue and ideas from countless different backgrounds and traditions. And as the first person in my immigrant family to graduate college, I stand here today incredibly proud. As I was preparing for today, I was sitting in front of St. Augustine Hall, and as I watched students walk by, I saw them going to Starbucks, their dorm, free food events, and I realized that I was watching a story. I was watching the St. John's story, our story. The nearly 150 chapters of the St. John's history is a timeless story, just like the stories that we used to read growing up, like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn or Catcher in the Rye. We have a responsibility to tell our story. We can all tell stories like these. Pope Francis actually talks about how borrowed knowledge is learning from experiences that you have in life and passing them on to somebody else, so that way your story can inspire others to change the world and to be, as what the Vincentians call, servant leaders. How do we tell this story? It's actually pretty easy. Each story, just like the ones that I've mentioned, they all have a setting, characters, conflicts, and triumphs. So what's our story's setting? St. John's has given me and so many of us the opportunity to call many places our settings for our story. Places like Rome, where I studied abroad, or Paris or Seville, where many of us have called home. DAC, where I've slept on the couch studying for that 7:30 a.m. final the next day that I totally didn't procrastinate for. Red Mango, where I used to work in between classes. And all the volunteer sites that we've served together with our fellow Johnnies, like the Midnight Runs or Bread and Life Soup Kitchen. These St. John's settings give you the chance to have incredible memories and incredible moments, like jogging past the Vatican at sunrise, or coming home on the F train at midnight after a long day at that internship that you finally landed, or having lunch in a soup kitchen in Brooklyn with some men and women that were just going through some tough times. It's also where you meet the most important characters of your life. Characters in our St. John's story can be someone that walks with us the whole time, or it could be someone that we just encountered for 5 minutes. Characters for many of us are the professor or faculty member that took a chance on us and saw something in us and believed in us, when even at times we didn't believe in ourselves. Characters can be the classmate I met sitting next to me freshman year during syllabus week, and we started talking because that person was just as lost and confused as I was. But they would soon become a close friend that I would laugh, cry, and share incredible memories with. A character could even be the student I met for 5 minutes my sophomore year, who was an international student. She told me about how she left her small town in a faraway land to come to New York, earn a degree, and become a fashion designer. That moment, my fellow Johnny inspired me to never change my dreams because they were too big or too intimidating. And every time I became frustrated with myself, I thought of that 5-minute conversation. The characters of your story are the ones that shape you into the person that you become in the final chapter. A good story also has conflicts that come in many different forms. During these 4 years, we've all faced conflicts internally that we've conquered in each of our stories. Our internal conflicts are the late nights of studying for that class that we didn't think that we were going to pass. It's that voice in your head that whispers you to quit and tells you it's not worth it. It's the crossroad between everything you want and everything standing in your way. And that's where you take a deep breath, another sip of coffee, and you handle it. We all handled it. And that's why we're sitting here today. We've also had the chance to experience external conflicts that affect all the characters living in our story. When I was in Rome, I was exposed to the external conflicts like the homeless rate and the increasing number of refugees coming in because of their homes that were overrun with civil war and terrorism. There were nights in Rome where a group of students and we made sandwiches and participated in a midnight run. As we were handing out sandwiches in Vatican City, we would also sit and listen to the stories of these homeless men and women. Some were struggling with addiction, some were displaced refugees, and some were just men and women that couldn't find work. One man said to me that it was the first time in a long while that he wasn't treated like he was invisible. Of course, handing out some sandwiches during one night would not solve the poverty problem overnight. But at that moment, these men and women, they just appreciated being listened to and thought of as equals. The men and women that I met that night, and every time I volunteered with the opportunities that St. John's gave me, opened my worldview and gave me a new perspective and a new understanding of what Atticus Finch was talking about when he said to his daughter, "Don't judge someone until you climb into their skin and walk around in it." We live in a world that tells us that it's everyone for themselves. But through the opportunities that St. John's has given us, through all the adventures in our settings and through all the characters that we've met, the ones who have helped us and the ones that we have helped, and through all the conflicts that we thought would break us, we, the class of 2017, have triumphed over our conflicts. And we've been the contrary to what the world tells us to be. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to create my story right here with each of you, my fellow adventurers at St. John's University. Over these past 4 years, we have written incredible St. John's stories, but we still have many amazing chapters still to write in our lives. And how do I know this? I know this because we are the future leaders. We are the great adventurers. We are the Red Storm. We are the class of 2017. Congratulations, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you, John Anthony. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in our program, we wish to recognize the members of our President's Society. Membership in the